When people think about the military power of Nazi Germany during World War II, they usually picture panzer divisions rolling across Europe, Stuka dive bombers screaming toward their targets, or German fighters battling for control of the skies. Yet behind every tank, every aircraft, every truck, and every mechanized advance stood something less glamorous, but far more decisive: fuel. Without oil, Blitzkrieg was impossible. Germany entered in the 1930s with one of the greatest industrial economies in Europe, but with one crippling strategic weakness: it had almost no domestic crude oil production. Unlike the United States or the Soviet Union, Germany could not rely on abundant natural petroleum reserves within its own borders. It was a modern industrial state preparing for mechanized war, but it lacked the blood of industrial warfare, liquid fuel. This problem became increasingly urgent as Adolf Hitler's regime moved away from diplomatic caution toward rearmament and war preparation. Nazi leadership understood that Germany could not fight a long industrial war while dependent on foreign oil imports vulnerable to blockade. At the same time, Hitler and the German general staff were embracing a new method of war centered on speed, concentration of force, armored breakthroughs, and tactical air power, what later became known as the Blitzkrieg. That strategy required enormous quantities of gasoline, aviation fuel, diesel, lubricants, and chemical feedstocks. The answer Berlin pursued was synthetic oil. Through massive state-backed investment, close cooperation with major industrial firms like IG Farben, Nazi Germany created one of the most ambitious synthetic fuel programs in modern history. Coal and lignite would be transformed into gasoline. Chemistry would replace geology. Germany would manufacture strategic independence. This synthetic oil empire became one of the economic foundations of Hitler's war machine. German military planners had already learned this lesson during World War I. Britain's control of the seas had strangled German access to critical imports. The memory of the blockade, shortages, and economic collapse remained vivid among both civilian and military leadership. Hitler's regime was determined not to repeat that experience. By the early 1930s, military doctrine was changing rapidly. Future wars would not be fought primarily by horse-drawn artillery and infantry columns. They would be fought by tanks, trucks, aircraft, mechanized logistics, and mobile operations requiring unprecedented fuel consumption. Germany's dependence on imported oil was therefore not just an economic inconvenience. It was a strategic vulnerability that could decide the outcome of war. The regime's solution was industrial autarky. The pursuit of economic self-sufficiency became one of the central pillars of Nazi economic policy. Hitler did not believe Germany could safely rely on global markets for strategic materials. He wanted an economy prepared for war and capable of surviving a blockade. This did not mean complete economic independence, which was impossible. It meant reducing dependence where dependence was most dangerous: food, rubber, metals, and especially oil. Synthetic fuel fit perfectly into this model. From a purely market perspective, synthetic gasoline made little sense. Producing fuel from coal was 10 times more expensive than importing natural crude oil. Foreign petroleum was cheaper, easier, and often of better quality. But war planning does not obey peacetime market logic. The Nazi leadership judged that expensive domestic fuel was preferable to cheap foreign dependence. Strategic security outweighed profitability. This required enormous financial commitment. In October of 1934, Berlin ordered the giant chemical conglomerate IG Farben to establishing a major synthetic fuel enterprise. The state arranged an initial investment of 100 million Reichsmarks, an enormous sum during the Depression era. The result was the creation of Brabag, Braunkohle Benzin AG, or Lignite Fuel Company. Its mission was clear: transform Germany's abundant lignite reserves into synthetic petroleum products for war. Lignite was plentiful in central Germany and could serve as the raw material for hydrogenation and synthetic fuel production. This was among the most expensive industrial projects in Europe. The state justified these costs because fuel security was considered essential to rearmament. By the late 1930s, synthetic fuel had become a cornerstone of German war planning. Germany was not trying to save money. It was buying time for war. Germany's strategic fuel miracle rested on a major chemical process, the Fischer-Tropsch process. Developed by Franz Fischer and Hans Tropsch, the method converted coal into synthetic gas, a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen, which was transformed into liquid hydrocarbons. This method offered flexibility and could produce a range of fuels and industrial chemicals. This gave Germany something extraordinary: the ability to manufacture strategic fuel from domestic coal reserves. The Leuna Werke, or the Leuna Works, became one of the largest industrial complexes in Germany and one of the most important nodes in the synthetic fuel system. Originally developed before the Nazi era, Leuna expanded dramatically under the rearmament. It became a symbol of German industrial modernity and strategic necessity. Leuna was not just a factory. It was an industrial fortress. It was heavily integrated into Germany's synthetic fuel program and became one of the key suppliers of aviation fuel for the Luftwaffe. Its economic significance was enormous. Leuna also reflected the dark moral reality of Nazi industrial policy. Like many major war industries, it increasingly relied on forced labor during the war years. Industrial efficiency and human brutality operated side by side. As Allied intelligence increasingly recognized Leuyna's importance, it became one of the most heavily bombed industrial targets in Europe. Its destruction would become central to Germany's defeat. The success of Germany's early campaigns cannot be understood without synthetic fuel. The invasion of Poland in 1939, France in 1940, and the early stages of Operation Barbarossa in 1941 depended on sustained mechanized operations. Tanks had to move fast. Aircraft had to maintain operational tempo. Supply lines had to function under relentless pressure. Blitzkrieg was not simply a tactical doctrine. It was a fuel-consuming machine. Without synthetic production, Germany's offensive capacity would have been sharply reduced. And Hitler's entire strategic method was built on gambling. Rapid victories before resource shortages could become fatal, and synthetic oil made those gambles possible. Operation Barbarossa in 1941 exposed the limits of Germany's fuel system. The invasion of the Soviet Union was the largest land campaign in history and consumed fuel on a scale far beyond earlier operations. Distances were immense. Supply lines stretched across hundreds of miles. Roads were poor. Mechanized forces suffered constant strain. Germany's synthetic fuel system could support major wars, but it could not support endless wars. As the conflict dragged on, fuel shortages became increasingly severe. The German army and the German Air Force began competing for the limited supplies. Training hours for pilots were reduced, panzer operations became constrained, and strategic mobility suffered. Germany did not seize the Soviet oil reserves it needed. Instead, it remained trapped between inadequate synthetic production, vulnerable Romanian imports, and rising Allied pressure. From that point forward, fuel scarcity became a permanent strategic crisis. By 1944, the Allies had identified synthetic fuel as one of Germany's greatest vulnerabilities. Destroying tank factories was useful. Destroying fuel production was decisive. The Allied oil campaign targeted synthetic fuel plants, refineries, and transportation networks with increasing precision and intensity. Leuyna, Brabach facilities, and other plants across Germany became primary objectives. The results were devastating. Fuel output collapsed. The consequences spread everywhere. Albert Speer later acknowledged that the destruction of synthetic fuel production was among the most decisive blows of the war. By late 1944 and early 1945, Germany still possessed weapons, factories, and soldiers. What it lacked was fuel. Without fuel, industrial power became useless. Synthetic oil had sustained the Reich. Its destruction helped end it. Nazi Germany's synthetic oil program was one of the most ambitious industrial projects of the 20th century. It enabled early victories. It sustained Germany far longer than geography should have allowed. It also trapped the regime in a dangerous illusion that industry could permanently solve strategic weaknesses. It could not. Synthetic oil bought time, but not enough. In the end, the story of Nazi Germany's synthetic oil program is a reminder of a brutal truth of modern warfare. Battles may be won by generals. Wars are often decided by logistics, and logistics run on fuel. Hitler's armies marched on fuel made from coal. When that disappeared, so did the Third Reich. I hope you enjoyed this episode. To make sure you don't miss my future work, subscribe to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.